But Ashot, you just introduce yourself. I'm very proud to know him because he's really a man here who develops a lot, has a lot of ideas. But I mean, you can also maybe just tell your background also that people.
Right.
The group here, of course, you know, they are all from Switzerland. I think about 8 are agronomists, different specialties. And of course, everybody's interested in what you're doing here.
So, first of all, welcome. Welcome to Mountain High Farms. I will introduce myself and then what we're doing, and then we'll go through the valley where our pastures are, and then I'll show you how we operate. So, my name is Ashot Pavosyan. I have a complicated background. I dedicated 25 years of my life being a lawyer, and unfortunately working in the mining sector. Mining is, and it's precious metals mining with a lot of toxic investors that they don't see anything but shining gold. So, and it was always dilemma for me because the mines are always in the mountains, and what we can do in the mountains except mining. So, especially for a country like Armenia, a small country, that's important. So, fortunately, before becoming a lawyer or a business consultant, I graduated the predecessor of Armenian Agricultural University it's called farming engineer. So, basically management of farms. Okay, and then I went into postgraduate studentship in genetics and biotechnology, like developing this idea of having this purely grazing operation in Armenia with high productive cattle, which Armenia doesn't really have, as you may see, not a lot. So import the highly productive cattle, especially those who can make good product on grazing, on pastures. Not on feeding, because Armenia is a landlocked country. Armenia doesn't have much land to grow feed for humans, and let alone for cattle. So it's always expensive. Energy is expensive, everything is expensive. So what you can do to be effective, and economically effective especially, is to develop such an operation. So it took 6 years of that study to see how and especially where it can work. So you are right now in the center of Dilijan National Park. It's a national park with very vast diversity of plants. So officially they have 95 species. If you look at their report, which was last developed in Soviet times, so 95 plant species, including warm season and cool season grasses. But then it took me 2 or 3 years to kind of audit the entire pasture, and I came up with 140. And I just stopped counting. We don't need more. It's very vast diversity. So that's where you should be. That was the idea. The second one was with the longest possible pasture season during the year. So our pasture season starts in early April, and it lasts until like the snow comes and covers the entire area. Even if it's snowing, but you can the grass is accessible, then we're still grazing. Okay. So it takes 10 months, sometimes 11, if you count like the days that you graze and also feed. We call it strategic hay, that we feed the animals just to wait for the pastures to open. So that's number 2. Number 3, we are completely regenerative, grazing operation. That means we are managing the pastures using electrical fence powered by solar solar energy. We grow pasture using the animals we have. We grow them we graze them in a way like as you mow your garden. We graze them in a year to regenerate them, to give them incentive to grow back. And then we move. And then we come back when the grass is still fresh and green. Mm-hmm. So we basically grow pasture. We monitor the plants. We monitor the vegetation. If you monitor the pasture, and if you are in a grazing operation, if you are growing meat as we do, or raising meat, then you can, afterwards, you can look at the animals and they will respond. If you have taken care of the regeneration of your pastures, wherever we want to be green, that's what we do. We don't have enough animals to cover the entire area, and that's the beauty of regenerative grazing. More animals you have, more grass you have. That's kind of like a paradox. So that's what we do. We currently, we're raising two types. So we are going to see Black Angus, which are absolutely domesticized here. They just feel great as if they were, made for this place. And also we have valleys and we have like steep slopes. So for the steeper slopes, we use Dorper because they can climb, no problem. We also use them to kind of clean up the pasture after the Angus, because cattle is very selective in grasses. But what we want is to turn every single plant into very good meat. Okay, that's basically what we do. Okay, so if you have questions, give it now, and then I'll walk through the rest of the operation.
How many cows you have?
We have about 100 Angus, and we have about 100 Dorper right now.
Including the young?
Including the young. We are still building our herd. What we see here, we can accommodate more than 300 units. 300 means cow-calf. We want to grow until 300, 350. And then stop and look around. For sheep, I think we can accommodate, if you can see with the higher land, more than 3,000. So we are in the process of building our herds. We are keeping the heifers. We are selling the bulls. The same we do with Dorper. We are keeping the ewes. And building it up. We have no barns, okay? No barns at all. We have no barns. We have no watering system. We have no manure. We have no manure removal. We are just, grain. We have a cover and a windbreak. If there is something like apocalyptic, like a snow with a very strong wind, then you go into under the cover in the winter. Otherwise, we're open all the time, open air.
But you have a very strict pasture management.
Yes, that's what we do. We manage our. So I'll explain it shortly. But so we used to change the pastures every day, sometimes twice a day. That's how you simulate the growth. For the cow-calf units, we are using them to prepare these pastures for the fattening bulls. Okay, so basically we are just using them to develop and regenerate the parts that we want. Our goal is to have fresh, like May grass, starting from April until like end of November. Okay, so that's the two systems we use, and then yes, we monitor the grasses shortly. As I said, we are grass growers. We're farming pasture. If you farm the pasture, if you look at your grass, your animals will be okay. You don't have to monitor them.
You said you are in the middle of a national park.
Right.
What are the agreements with the government and the limits that eventually, do you have contracts with the government? Or?
Yes. What we do, you lease the pastures. This is the center of the national park, and it's called the protective zone. And that's where all the pastures are. So you can graze animals only on pasture land. That's the law in Armenia. The limitations are the logging is prohibited. The hunting seasons are controlled because of the also animal diversity, wildlife diversity, and many other things. This is Armenia has like several regimes. It's a national park regime, which is kind of loose, and then there is a reserve regime that you may enter with only with a special permission. So reserves, there are some reserves in this area, but we are in the so-called protection zone, which, you know, with pastures, I think there are more than 5,000 hectares. What we do, we look ahead in 2 or 3 years from now, we're developing these pastures so when our herd grows, we can use them. It's difficult to use non-grazed pastures. They are degrading a lot. Okay, so this one is degrading. We haven't been here yet. Our pasture starts from that gate. So when you start fresh on the pasture, it's really hard. You have to spend almost a year to make it grow.
So you started with pastures like this.
And when you graze them, the next year, and it's like a lot of wheat. We call it wheat pressure. It's big. But when you graze them, and then next year you come, you think somebody came and put seeds of all these palatable, clovers and everything else. It's just they are just growing like they were waiting for the animals to come. So that's how you develop, and then and we could monitor. So this is the 4th year we're doing it, and every year our pastures developed. Every year you have better, it's more palatable grasses and plants and less weeds every year, and of course more grass at the same time.
To what age do you keep the animals?
Good question. So you are going to see 3-year-old bulls here that we are going to sell as meat or beef this year. So this year we could get the yields per Angus 2 years old, and the carcass weighs 340 kilograms. It's huge. For grass, it's just unbelievable. You are going to see them today. Yeah. We're still keeping another month of like 8 of them, so you are going to see them. But we got to this point this year, like 4 years later. Last year, it was 240 kilograms for 3-year-old. So this is the indicator of how better your pastures became, because we're not using anything.